One of the miracles of Imam Mahdi, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, may Allah hasten his reappearance, was that we find in a book by Sheikh Nuri called Jannatul Ma'wa in the 15th chapter, where he says that there was a man living in Najaf who was studying to become a scholar. His name was Muhammad Hassan, and he had 3 problems that he was suffering from while living in the holy city of Najaf. The first problem he had was that he discharged blood from his chest, so he was coughing up blood. Number 2, he was in deep poverty. And number 3, he wanted to marry a woman, but her family refused to marry her to him. So we see that problem a lot nowadays too, that a lot of people are having problems getting married. So this is not something that just happened now, but this sometimes it happened in the past as well. That this man, he had this problem. So he said, let me see what I can do about it. So when he lost hope from having his problem solved, he decided to go to Mosque of Kufa every Tuesday night for 40 weeks in a row. And it was common amongst students that whoever visited Mosque of Kufa for 40 weeks would be honored to meet the Imam, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. So this young man, he began his journey hoping to see the Imam and explain to him these 3 problems that he was facing and he was suffering from. So the last night came, the 40th night came. It was dark, it was windy, it was cold. He couldn't wait in the mosque due to the blood that he was coughing up. So he sat at the mosque doorsteps, and he thought to himself that this is the last night and he hadn't had the honor of seeing the Imam yet. And he was feeling upset and desperate. You know, he wanted to see the Imam. He had came all these nights to Masjid al-Kufa, and it's the last night, and it's raining, and it's windy, and it's cold, and it's dark, and he really just wants to have these problems solved and wants to meet his Imam. So he went through all of this hardship to meet his Imam, and he's hoping to meet him. So this man, he used to drink coffee a lot, and he lit the fire to make some coffee. And some say it was tea. I've heard this is also mentioned for tea as well. But anyway, he was drinking his drink that he made, coffee or tea, and a man was approaching him. And this young Sheikh Hassan, he wasn't really comfortable with the man approaching him, because he didn't know who he was. He was like, who's this guy? You know, I'm sitting here. He was saying this to himself while he's sitting drinking his coffee. And he's saying, this man wants to drink my drink that I just made, and then there's going to be nothing left for me, you know. So he didn't really feel comfortable. So he says the man came and he greeted him by name. He knew his name. So he was surprised that, how did this guy know my name? He came out of nowhere and now he knows my name. And he asked me, which tribe are you from? So, are you from the tribe of so-and-so? He would say, no. This is what the man was asking him, which tribe you are from. So he'd say no, no, and then finally he asked, so what brought you here? Why are you here? So he told him, you know, why are you asking me these things? You know, and he said, what's the harm if you tell me? Just tell me, why are you here? There's no harm in it. You know, we're just out here talking, and nothing's going on. It does no harm to have some small conversation. So he poured the coffee for the man and he offered it to him. So the man took a sip from it and then he gave it back to the young Sheikh, Muhammad Hassan. He gave it back to Muhammad Hassan and he told him to drink it and go ahead and drink it. So he took the cup and he drank from it. And then he started, the man said, I started telling him about my problems. I told him how I was discharging blood from my chest, how poor I was, and how that I fell in love with a woman, but her family refused me and won't let me marry her. And some scholars were misled by me telling me to go to to Mosque of Kufa and I will see Imam Mahdi and get my problem solved. They told me if I came here for 40 weeks I would see him and everything would be fine. And I've been through so much problems, so much difficulty and suffering. I've came here every single night, every Tuesday night for 40 weeks. And this is the last night and I haven't seen anything. And yet while I was unaware, the man told me that for my chest, he said that your chest is healed. And the woman that you'll marry, the woman you want to marry, you're going to marry her soon. But as for poverty, you'll remain poor, and you'll remain poor in this situation. So when he woke up in the morning, the man went home after this, and he probably thought, this is strange. The man told me my chest is healed, and I'll marry this woman. And anyway, it says when he went home and he woke up in the morning, he felt that his chest had been healed. And then later on that week, he married the woman, and however he did remain poor, but he had 2 of his hajjah answered. One might say, well, why weren't all 3 of them answered? That he still remained poor, so why didn't the Imam give him wealth? Well, when we look at it, wealth is not good for everybody. Sometimes you see that wealth corrupts individuals. Wealth causes them to deviate. Wealth causes them to change who they really are. So maybe the wealth wasn't good for him, and the Imam knew that wealth wasn't good for him, so he did not grant him this hajjah because it could have destroyed him. So he remained poor and a good servant of the Imam and a good worshiper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he didn't grant him this hajjah, but the other ones he did grant. And we see that he was able to marry, and also he was healed. One of the things I wanted to mention was that we see a lot of times that the woman's families are rejecting the marriage proposals. And a lot of it goes back to cultural things and cultural norms. And a lot of times we see that we look in the narrations. It says that Imam Ali alayhi salam was asked, why do we pray for things and they're not granted to us, even though Allah says, call on me and I will respond to you. And one of the things that he said was that you know the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, you know the way of the Prophet, but you do not follow it. It doesn't benefit you. So one of these things is that the Prophet used to arrange for people to get married, and it didn't matter about their social status or all of these things. He arranged for them to get married and at a young age to avoid corruption. So we see now that you have to have, from talking with different brothers and different friends of mine, I've seen that a lot of struggles that people go through, and speaking with youth, some of them are like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get married, because the family wants you to have college degree, then master's degree, then PhD, and if it's not this, it has to be a certain type of car you drive, and if you don't have this certain type of car, then you have to have a certain square footage of house, and X, Y, Z, all these type of things. You have to check all of the boxes, and they don't even care a lot of times if you're religious or not. They just want you to have these things in order for you to get married to their daughter, for example. And this is going against the sunnah of Rasulullah. The Prophet didn't do this. The Prophet married individuals who were poor, and we can look at the examples of Imam Ali alayhi salam marrying Fatima to Zahra alayhi salam, when we look at what they had when they got married. So one might say, okay, these are the ma'sumeen, for example, but the Prophet also married other people, lots of people together without them having to have all of these riches. They just needed to be good human beings, good individuals, good Muslims, and the Prophet would facilitate marriage for these individuals. So a lot of times people get refused for marriage, not on the right reasons, but just because they don't have enough or they don't have the right social status and all of these things. And we see that none of these hajjah of this person might have been answered if the man remember when the Imam was coming to him, he didn't know who he was. He said, "Oh, this stranger's coming, you know, I got my nice cup of coffee that I'm drinking." And imagine if he didn't offer him the coffee, or he turned and walked away and said, "Man, let me get out of here before this guy comes, because I know he's going to want some of this drink that I have." Or someone could say the same thing with food, for example. "Oh, I know that guy's going to come. He's going to ask me for something, for some food or for some money, and I'm just going to get out of here before he might ask me for something. So let me cross the street and take the other way." But this man, even though he didn't want to do it, he still gave it to the man and was still kind to him. And it turned out to be the Imam. And the Imam drank from this cup and then gave it back to him and told him to drink. But if he would have never offered this cup of coffee to this man, he would have never drank out of it. And drinking from this cup after the Imam is what healed him. So it shows a great lesson how we should care for other people, and we should be nice with other people and be generous with other people, and because we never know who the person might be. And in this case, for this man, it was the Imam alayhi salam. So through this act of kindness that he did towards the Imam, he was able to speak with the Imam and have his wishes fulfilled, that he had been going through so much difficulty to try to go to Mosque of Kufa every Tuesday night for 40 weeks in a row. And he sat down and had a conversation with this man who he thought was a stranger, and it turned out to be the Imam. So we should always keep this in mind and try to be nice to everyone that we come in contact with, because we don't know who that person might be.